Have you ever just stopped and wondered, what makes us, well, us? Today, we're going to dive into the science that's dedicated to answering that exact question anthropology. It's really the ultimate search for ourself. These aren't just late night thoughts. They're the really big, fundamental questions that drive all of us. And they also just happen to be the questions sitting right at the heart of anthropology. So let's see how this field even begins to tackle them. All right, here's our game plan. We'll start by defining this massive field. Then we'll look at the two sides of humanity, dig into clues from the past, listen to the stories our languages tell, and then we'll wrap it all up with why any of this really matters today. So, first up, what is this ambitious science? Let's get right to the core of what it means to search for ourselves, anthropologically speaking. The core definition is actually beautifully simple. Anthropology is the study of humans across all of time and all of space. Time basically means our evolution, right? From our earliest ancestors all the way up to now. And space, that covers the incredible variety we see in human societies all across the globe. Yeah, a scope that big can feel, well, a little overwhelming, right? I mean, it covers our biology, our beliefs, our entire past and present. So how on earth do anthropologists even begin to make sense of it all? Well, they do it by breaking it down into manageable pieces. The field is generally organized into these four major branches, and each one tackles a different piece of the huge human puzzle. It's a structure that helps bring some focus to what would otherwise be a totally unlimited field of study. Okay, let's move on to our second section. Here, we're going to explore the two sides of humanity by looking at the fascinating interplay between our biology, our culture, and our society. Our understanding of human biology didn't just appear overnight. It actually started way back in the late 18th century with some really flawed ideas about race. But then you get these huge game-changing moments, like Darwin's work on evolution and the rediscovery of genetics, and suddenly the field is pushed toward a much more scientific approach. And all of that led to this incredibly important turning point. After World War II, a team of scientists for UNESCO, including the great anthropologist Ashley Montagu, decided to tackle the concept of race head-on. Their conclusion? It was a landmark statement. There is simply no scientific basis for racial superiority. Period. But of course, as we all know, genetics and biology are only half the story of what makes us human. So what about the other side of the coin? This brings us right to social cultural anthropology. So you might be wondering, how is this different from, say, sociology? Well, think of it this way. Traditionally, an anthropologist might go live and immerse themselves in a small, non-Western community for years. A sociologist, on the other hand, is more likely to use a huge survey to study a modern city. Now, those lines are way blurrier today, but their different origins are really key to understanding their different perspectives. And it's a similar story when you compare it to history. Historians, they need written records. But what about all that human experience, the vast majority of it, before writing even existed? That's exactly where anthropology steps in, piecing together the past of non-literate societies using other clues. Which brings us perfectly to our third section, clues from the past, and the totally fascinating work of the archaeologist. Think of prehistoric archaeology as being a detective for cultures you can't interview. Since these folks can't talk to early people, they have to deduce how they lived from everything that got left behind. Tools, art, homes, even their garbage. It is historical detective work on a massive, massive scale. And archaeology today is so much more ambitious than it used to be. It's not just about finding cool stuff. Modern archaeologists are trying to reconstruct entire worlds. They're theorizing about cultural change, rebuilding a picture of social life, and even trying to get inside the minds of ancient people. It's incredible. That leads us right into our fourth branch, which looks at one of the most uniquely human things about us, our language. This is the story in our words. Now, this isn't just about studying grammar. Anthropological linguistics really zooms in on the unwritten languages of the world, and the whole goal is to understand how a culture's entire worldview is baked right into the unique way they speak. And believe it or not, this isn't some new idea. Way back in the 19th century, thinkers like E.B. Tylor were arguing that we needed a scientific way to study language and culture together. He pretty much drew the blueprint for the entire field. Okay, so we've covered the four major branches. Now for the big finale, Section 5, Why It All Matters. What are the big takeaways from all this searching we've been talking about? And that's a totally fair question, isn't it? Why spend all this time studying ancient bones, faraway societies, and forgotten languages? What's the payoff for us, right here, right now? Well, the impact is huge. It all starts with really understanding human differences, which lets us debunk all those harmful myths about race and so called barbarous people. And that leads to a much deeper understanding of ourselves. We realize so much of who we are is learned, not inherited. And that is so empowering because it means we can change. And finally, all this understanding has a really powerful practical application. This is what's called applied anthropology. It's where all this knowledge actually hits the ground and makes a difference. An applied anthropologist might work with, say, a public health organization, using their deep cultural understanding to help doctors connect better with the community. And that can literally save lives. So in the end, anthropology shows us that this search for ourselves, it's a journey that never really ends. And it kind of makes you wonder, right? 1,000 years from now, when future anthropologists are digging up our lives, what story will our stuff tell about us?